Hi, my name is Marsha Caddle. You are with us in the Boiler Room, an H2P media production.
We ready? Rolling.
Rolling. Down the hill.
Right, down the hill, up the hill.
Bubbling.
So another episode of the Boiler Room, and this one is an important one because who knows, by the time this get on YouTube, maybe elections would have been called.
Still being about on the day thing, but we keep a hand up on that.
No one knows for sure.
Like a kite on trade.
They call it the silly season. But it's not really silly, it's serious business.
I don't know. Oh, wait, what is never get is the name, the silly season, when they got such people that brilliant people that be running the country. But no,
because people make a mockery of it. It's supposed to be one of the most serious times. And yet you see persons slinging mud and making jokes, inappropriate jokes, and instead of addressing issues, we're talking about non-issues more often than we're talking about serious, very serious issues, especially in a time like this.
So you're saying that there are people who make a mockery of a serious thing.
Correct.
And turn the serious season into a silly season.
Correct.
And if in Barbados, the word politician that we were discussing earlier,
Yes.
because of this trend, is a bad word.
Yep.
If you tell somebody you was a politician, they say, well, F you.
Yeah,
You know?
it's true.
Or the assumption is that they're a crook.
Right.
And if they aren't a crook yet, they will be by the time they finish the term.
So you know, Crystal, because you know come on board, but we have discussed this for a while, and Faraya and Neil and I, and we have debated whether or not we should allow these people to have such a bad reputation through the door in the boiler room. You know what I mean? Should we do it? Should we taint our show with such scurrilous and scandalous persons?
This is quite the intro.
This does not necessarily apply to, the beautiful...
No, this is not an intro. This is not an intro, I guess, because obviously we decided that, you know what, it is such a serious season that the boiler room cannot afford to not be involved, right? And we don't intend to make a mockery of it.
Agreed.
So we said, you know what, we need to have some politicians on the show. So tonight we have our first aspiring politician. And I say aspiring purposely because what that means is this person has not yet been tainted.
Ain't through that door yet. Ain't for them mahogany floors that are going in.
She has not swam through the mud.
Nah, she ain't do nothing so.
Of the political swamp like some of the others. This is her first time seeking to represent the people of Barbados in politics.
We're not Barbados. We say again, South Central.
St.Michael, South Central.
St.Michael, South Central.
If she wins, she will represent Barbados, man. She'll be a member
because,
of Barbados.
She make a lot of in fact, all Barbados.
And that's part of the problem. People is think that persons get elected and they're only supposed to represent the people who vote for them.
Yeah.
No, but that person is supposed to represent
key decisions that impact Barbados.
She is a member of the Barbadian government. She or he. So I'd like to welcome the person who has put herself up.
Well, she step up first.
Step up.
She brave. She's small but brave.
To be the first political guest, the guinea pig really. Who knows? You know how we can handle one.
It's true.
You know what it's gonna be like. You know how many politicians screw me over. And they're looking to take it up on you.
It's the moment not coming to do now. You see what they do to Canada? Not like that there. You understand?
But in all fairness and in the spirit of openness, I feel comfortable with this guest tonight because I know her a long time.
Yeah, he was telling me.
You know what I mean? And I feel comfortable with the character of the person. We have had discussions before, and I tell her I am not so comfortable with the party politics.
Last year. B's
and D's, and the affiliation.
Yeah.
I ain't know nothing about the rest.
Right.
I know about you.
Fair
right?
enough.
And even you can't be so sure because, you can't swear for nobody.
I understand.
But Marsha, I really welcome you to the boiler room.
Thank you. I am very, very happy to be here.
Yeah.
I have to declare my hand early as well because I would not have known Marsha as long as you have, but I had a friend that told me I have to meet Marsha Caddle, I have to meet Marsha Caddle. This friend I trust completely. And they're saying, it's a politician though, so I didn't really know about this. And he pushed and pushed. And when I met Marsha, which would have been at the forum that you did your speech at the Central Bank, I said, yes, this is a person who knows what she's talking about. And then I went and looked into her background and I said, oh my God, she actually looks like a good candidate. And I started to get these goosebumps.
Wow.
And I just saying, wow, this is some person that I could actually stand behind in terms of intellect, relatability, and confidence. And it felt good to know that there was a politician, regardless of which party you represent, that was some person that I felt like I could look up to. And I thank him for pushing me to meet you. He's now very upset that I get to see you more often than he does. But I have to declare my hand early. I do like Marsha Caddle as a person, and I look forward to seeing how you are as a politician.
Oh, that's a
That's a
That's
ringing
a- Hold on.
endorsement there.
warm
Yeah,
welcome.
let me just say, you gotta be fair. You gotta be fair.
I will
You
talk about the
gotta be
other ones that
fair.
I like
You
when
got
I
to
get
be
there.
fair. You got to be fair.
But I think that this is what I'm looking forward to about this conversation, because I think that even though I've known Adrian for years, I've known Crystal for a little while, for I don't know you.
Yeah,
so.
don't worry.
But I
Don't do the
do
wrong things when you
think
get power.
I do think that this is going to be a fair conversation, because I think y'all are fair
Yes.
people, and I don't think they're gonna give me any special treatment. So don't be too worried about that.
No, man, no special
No.
treatment in the boiler room.
Because the hard questions still have to come, because
Yeah.
we're still with a party that may not have a full slate of candidates that would necessarily be seen as having the country's best interests at heart. So you still have to balance that in terms of how do you deal with that? Do we sweep it under the carpet that not every candidate might be an ideal candidate? How do we deal with the fact that other parties may also have candidates that may be well suited to representing the country? And how do we address the key issues that are going to impact Barbadians going into the next
Right.
season?
Well, I think that the extent to which not every candidate of the Barbados Labour Party might be an ideal candidate is a judgment that each person will make. Certainly the fact that I'm on a Barbados Labour Party ticket means that I think that we have 30 strong, capable candidates, right? I will say that I didn't know what I was coming to originally, except beyond the leadership of the party, Mia Motley, who's somebody that I've always admired. But now that I have been, this is almost 2 years, July would be 2 years that I've been working with the Barbados Labour Party. I first sought the nomination in, I first presented myself in around summer of 2016. My nomination was in October, early October. So I became the candidate on October 2nd. But I can say that working with this team has been refreshing. You don't know what you're coming into. I knew that, I spoke to the leadership of the party, and I felt like, yeah, this is something that I can get behind. I mean, this makes sense. And I would not be, I know we don't want this to be a political platform, but I would not be telling the truth if I didn't think that the reason that I chose a BLP ticket is because when I look at the philosophy and the ideology of the party, it is something I could stand behind. When I look at the current leadership of the party, it's something I could stand behind. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Otherwise, I would be running as an independent.
Well, we had Peter Wickham on the show.
Uh-huh.
I know Peter declares his hand
Right.
as a Mia Motley supporter.
Yes.
His argument is that you support the party based on the leader, that the leader is everything, right? But you just said, the ideology and the philosophies of the Barbados Labour Party, and the feeling of many Barbadians, and I must say myself included, is that I don't really see the difference in ideology and philosophy, So
Right.
you would have to educate me as to what is the difference between the Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party, besides personnel.
Right. Well, let me say this. I have always felt, and you asked me earlier before we started the formal conversation whether I grew up in a political household. I didn't really grow up in a political household. I knew who my parents supported, but they made it clear to us, 3 girls that they were raising, that, listen, y'all need to inform yourselves about what is out there and make a choice. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. Try and learn what is going on, and see who it is you think can represent you. But when people say, and Adrian, it's true that we hear that, there is no difference between the two parties. This is how I feel about it. I feel like whether it is the BLP, the party of Grantley Adams, or the DLP, the party of El Barrow, we have had strong leadership on both sides. I feel like we've had strong leadership and sensible policy on both sides until the last decade. And I know we said we weren't going to jump into a political platform, but that's the clear difference that I feel. I feel like I can say to people, I can understand if you have had an affiliation on either side. Mm-hmm. But I feel that the people who happen to have occupied Parliament up until March 6th have actually let down their side, right? So I can stand behind the ideology of the BLP because I've always thought the Barbados Labour Party thought it was important for Barbadians to own land and not be tenants in their own country. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, because I think that when you live in a place where you are the descendants of slaves, where nothing has belonged to you, it is important for policy to drive you to a place of ownership.
I don't think anybody in the DLP would disagree with you.
That's fine, right? But I'm saying, you've asked me, how can I stand behind the ideology of the Barbados Labour Party? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying how I can stand behind it. I think land ownership, I think education, I think things like making sure that we have certain infrastructure development, certain access to technology, making sure that we move beyond a sugar economy to things like services and tourism and that kind of thing.
Barrow is you put it aside.
That's fine, but that's the point I'm making. I'm saying that on both sides,
mm-hmm. Right,
we have had a clear trajectory of development, right? Now.
So the difference.
So basically, before this current administration, you may have even gotten a ticket on either side.
I wouldn't say I would have gotten a ticket on either side. I wouldn't say that, but I don't think that's what the conversation is about. I don't think is that. I think that, listen, the reason that I wanted to offer myself for political service is that I think that this is not any ordinary going down here now. And I'm being straight, right? I think that many of us may have sat back in the past and been like, okay, well, we feel as if because of the country is going in a direction that is okay with us, that we can get behind a lot of the policy decisions, give or take a few, because I can't say that I've always been on board. But I feel like we are at such a precipice now, a place that we have never been at before. And the reason I thought, I really thought, who else is it up to but me or you or y'all? Is our generation that is up to, right? I'm 39 years old, right? Like, the adults aren't in charge anymore. We are in charge. So I thought that it had to be now, because I really started to get afraid in a way that I've never been before about the direction Barbados was going. So when I go on the road and I'm canvassing, and people start to say, well, 40 years ago this happened, and 30 years ago this happened, I say to them, that may be so. But the truth is, I cannot justify what happened before I came. And I don't know that that's where we want to be going. I think that where we want to be going is to be saying, well, what is it that happened in the past that we don't want to take forward at all? Governance issues, and Crystal, you talk about this all the time. Some of the things that we know, listen, if Barbados is to go forward, if we are to shake off a lot of the foolishness that has defined politics, these are the things we have to leave behind. But I think what's perhaps more important is, what are the things we got to take forward? I feel there's an opportunity. As dejected as some of us might feel about where Barbados is, I feel there's an opportunity to say, listen, on both sides, foolishness happened, right? And a new politics means that there's some things that we're leaving behind.
You have a hell of a job now convincing people that this Barbados Labour Party is different from Barbados Labour parties of the past.
Right. Fair enough.
Hell of a job.
Yes. This is the first time, and again, I say, you made the point about what Peter was saying earlier. I feel extremely confident to be led by Mia Morley. This is the first time that Mia is taking the Barbados Labour Party into an election, and were we to win, would be Prime Minister. So that's a clear difference for me. And that is the important difference for me. You know, it's when I talked to her for the first time, I saw somebody who was not performing, who, first of all, the way that I met her is that she was seeking my input. She was like, okay, you're a young person, you have a particular background, you have a particular perspective. Tell me some things that you want to see. Tell me some things that you think we are not getting right. And I realized that that's what she had been doing for some time. And the fact that it is not consultation for consultation's sake, and that from what I've seen in the last 2 years, the people whose advice she seeks or whose guidance she seeks, whether you are 16 or 26 or 36, that it means something. It ends up somewhere. It's not just rhetoric, right? That was the first thing that made me feel encouraged. But then when I heard her talk about the types of policies that a BLP government led by her would seek to implement, I mean, Crystal, you were talking earlier about getting goosebumps. I started to feel excited. Because this sounded to me like somebody who was more about the development than about the politics. You know, when I go to somebody's house and they tell me that they don't get involved in politics, because that's the other thing that we fighting against, right? And I say fighting against it because the sense of opting out is going to be our biggest downfall as a country if we don't try and re-engage people, right? But when I go to people who tell me and they say, well, I ain't about politics, I say, listen, all politics is the process by which you select or elect the people that are going to guide the country in the business of development. Politics is the process, but the development is what we are here for. Development, transformation, helping people go forward, helping people live. The politics is just the process. I have to present myself to you because otherwise how you gonna know what I'm about?
You can't really say I don't get involved in politics. If you travel the roads, you involved in politics.
Because people, that's
you
the
catch
thing.
a bus, you involved in politics.
Agreed.
You pay taxes, you involved in politics.
But the agenda is my thing, right? As far as you know what is like quiet, you hear me saying that. My thing is this: people say wrong election time, politicians mouths get sweet like molasses water, and right after that,
don't see them.
you don't see, you don't hear. The constituency offices shut down, the email change, the phone numbers change, and all of that.
Yeah.
I went through that already.
Right.
I ain't gonna call the politician man here. And right now, we're actually here in power right now, but a lot of people that open me went through that. What the BLP can do now to change that, because we already know he already branded up. We were like, he ain't really check for people and he never really look out for the people. So now y'all gotta come and change the whole perspective of him.
Right.
Or he gotta do it himself.
Yeah.
So why when you want to empower, as we say, why you can't help people from your communities? That's we one or the other man and then your friend, what y'all don't talk.
Okay, so you're asking, if you are in opposition and you are the MP, why can't you help because you're not a government MP?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you raised that, because I think people don't realize a lot, and Santia talks about this all the time. When she first won her seat, she was disappointed because she would become an opposition MP. And you don't have the access, you don't have the resources, you don't have access to any real policy because you're a minority. You don't have the majority in parliament, right? So even though you will come and you will remonstrate about all of the things, the injustices facing people in your constituency, they don't have to listen to you. And you don't control policy at all, and you don't really control any resources.
So you get free money every month.
Yeah, so basically it sounds like to me.
It's not free. It's not free.
I
You're
mean,
a member.
if your
If
hands
you ain't doing
and
that,
you can't
that's
do
only
nothing,
free money to
you're
me.
pulling a
But
salary for nothing.
we mentioned this earlier, which is representation. Members of parliament are meant, this is what you're meant to do. You're meant to know the issues that are affecting your constituents, and you are meant to take those issues to parliament to say, well, listen, this proposed policy is going to, or legislation is going to affect my constituents in this way or in that way or in that way. I think it's a good idea for that reason. I think it's a bad idea for that reason. That's what you're being paid to do. Now, you will find that a lot of opposition MPs, and I call Santia's name in particular because she is one of the ones who I think has done a very good job of this. You will find a lot of opposition MPs are very resourceful about how they're able to help the community. I mean, even in my constituency in the last couple of years, we are facing such a jaded population that you cannot wait until you get there to show people that you have an interest in their well-being. That's a fact, right? So I can't sit there and hear people tell me all the time how, there are no after-school programs for children, or, we can't apply for jobs because we don't have access to the internet. I can't sit there and nod and say, okay, and not show people, listen, I'm going to try to do something about this. And that's why, even as a candidate, so not an opposition MP, not a government MP, most of my work right now is about helping to develop community programs. So people feel like whether she is in or out, her work is about helping us.
Were you doing this before you were running?
Well, I have an NGO. So yes, I mean, my NGO, we founded it in 2005, and it's called the Women's Health Advocacy Network. And it's really about, we've done quite a bit of community work working with young women. And the way it started is that, I used to be playing football, going to football, and young women used to come and watch the matches. And I just started hearing some of the issues. Like, they would say, they're talking, and they'd be saying, well, I was supposed to go and get a pap smear, but X. Or my little children went to school today called them child fathers sign out, but for right now, we can't really. So all these things were throwing up. And I thought, okay. And even with my sister, she died 4 years ago from breast cancer. And I going through that process with her, seeking treatment, it was maddening. So all of these things that young women were going through made me think, okay, well, this is an underserved or unserved population. This is something that I could do. And so we started quite a bit of community work there. So yeah, it is possible to do work at the community level without being an MP. But it's not possible to do work at the national policy level. And that is one of the reasons that I wanted to get involved. Because I think that there are two levels here. There's understanding what's happening in communities. And the truth is, I feel that now in 2018, because of how decimated the country has been, we now have to go back to the community level. We now have to go back to start helping communities to start to rebuild a lot of the social capital that we used to have.
So here's a question I have, right? I mean, given the unpopularity of the present government,
yes,
it's really easy to say that Barbados is going along just good, and then the DLP happened, and but things like this, an issue like this, we're an MP who is not a member of parliament. Who's not a member of government, right? The way their hands are tied, or the way they are disempowered to give the kind of help that a member of parliament who is in government can do. These are things and issues or problems, loopholes in our governmental system, our system of governance that need to be looked at and need to be changed. It is really sad that you can win your seat, but your government lose it.
Yeah, and
you are not as empowered as somebody from the other party.
Right, but
how you can change? But is there a government in Barbados who's willing to say, nah, damn right,
but
whoever win the seat got to be empowered?
I think, and y'all are gonna say this is partisan, but is the reason that I ended up on this side and not on the other side. I I think from what I've observed, right, that we have seen a certain level of victimization and hyper-partisanship in the last decade that we have not seen on either side, that we had not seen on either side before that. And what do I mean by that? I mean that there used to be a certain sense of responsibility in Parliament and in the Cabinet that, yes, this person representing St. Thomas, for example, or St. Joseph might be in opposition, but the fact is that their constituents need this particular help, and I'm going to make it happen. There used to be that sense of responsibility, right, by the government, whoever was in power. But what we're seeing now, the perversion of the thing, is that, you know, this government, I don't want it to be a political platform, but, you know, be taking it there. I feel as if this current government is playing politics very far into, playing politics for the duration of their term. So that what happens is that the constituencies that have opposition MPs suffer in a way that opposition MPs' constituencies did not suffer before.
I know. I can't say that you're wrong or right. I know that for as long as I know myself, people have been saying, you know, we MP can't do nothing because he ain't in power. This is under successive government. So I know if I buy that. But even if that is the case, what that means is the system allows for a certain level of corruption. I call that corruption. Right? It ain't bribery or thieving, but there's a level of corruption in the system. Yeah. And how do we change the system so it is not possible? That's the integrity legislation too. You could argue, we never had integrity legislation before, and the government never thieved like this one. Somebody can make that argument. Then the point, when the new government come in, if a new government comes in, will they make it so no one ever can get away with the kind of things they're accusing this government of getting away with? Because
that's my problem. We are now saying that we're going to depend on the integrity of the next party to not use the loopholes that the current party has used.
Let me be fair, is alleged to have used.
So that is the problem that I have.
I am blowing.
If you're not going to make movement to close these loopholes, then you're going to tell me we again have to depend on their integrity. And then if it doesn't happen, what do we do? Because the disenfranchisement that we feel will magnify to another level, because you couldn't feel that comfort with them. You get the new person and the same thing happen again, and you can feel like...
You know what I think is a big part of the problem? It is that we have maintained politics and political activity and what happens in Parliament and what happens in Cabinet as a black box, right? So it's almost as if people have to wait for us to come and give them information, where I don't think it should be like that. I don't think that we should have... I think there should be a certain level of information or a certain degree to which information and what we discuss and what we do at both at the constituency level and at the national level is clear for all to see. In fact, I think that this is why new candidates like myself find ourselves having to push back against this apathy, is because politicians have made this thing seem as if it is a secret, right? The business of politics is something that we can't lay open to people on an everyday basis. And obviously there are certain things that have to do with national security and these kinds of things that you can't just lay bare. But I think part of the problem is that we've maintained a lot of secrecy around the business of what MPs do on a day-to-day basis.
I think that was so before 2008.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that as a system,
but nobody
that
cared
has
before
happened.
2008 because Barbados was doing well. We were at investment grade. People could do all the things they wanted to do. No one bothered. You only get bothered when you realize that you're in junk status, you got potholes in the road, and you can't figure out where the money is going.
And that's why a lot of what you will see, or you may have already seen, our draft manifesto was leaked. I don't know if y'all saw that. But some of what you will...
Somebody said it was what? Straight from the devil or something. You don't even know these.
I don't know.
These people
But but what you'll notice when we
talking.
launch a manifesto, the official manifesto, and you may have seen some of it already, is that we focus a lot on the idea of local governance, which is, it needs to be about the business of running communities, and this country has to be about more than just the 30 of us in parliament, right? So you have to decentralize some of the power, not in the constituency council way where people were appointed, because that is also clearly open to patronage and to the same political interference. But between the integrity legislation that we put on the website,
Which take some licks.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. Listen, it could take some licks. That's the point. That's
they get the licks and the changes before it get passed.
Exactly, and that's the point of it. Like, we're not afraid of licks, you know. I think that's a good thing to put it out there and say this is what we want to do, and people say, actually, I don't like this, and here's why. That's good. That's good for everybody, and it's good for us. But between the integrity legislation and the discussion of local governance and how it would work, the idea of transparency of information, I've worked with data all my life as an economist, and I've never understood why we could not publish certain actual expenditure decisions of government. Like, why is it that
money?
That's the point. I mean, I did some work with Jamaica, before I resigned from my job.
To run for parliament.
And part of what we did was come up with a system to have certain expenditure decisions, especially key expenditure information, projects and programs that are of real interest to the people of the country. Have it published on a real-time basis. What are you spending when the day comes? There's no reason at all why we cannot do that. And, it is something that I would like to see. It's something that I raised with my colleagues. And they also think that there's no reason that we can't see that. The idea of open data. Like, what's the real situation with the unemployment? What's the real situation? Stop sitting back and waiting for the central bank government to come and proclaim this and that. We should be able to look at it every day. What's going on with the foreign reserves? Instead of waiting for somebody to come and say, well, actually, this should be something that we pull up a page and it's ticking across the top of our, and it might be because we have low levels of trust, and I admit we have low levels of trust, that at first we might have to have somebody else say, well, this is correct, because they're not lying to you, this is correct. But I don't think that I'm an idealist, but I do think that it comes to the point where we return to the place where we feel that we can trust the people that we have elected, because otherwise, what is the point? So I think there are all kinds of ways.
That's what you're meeting on the streets. People saying there is no point.
I think that a lot of what I'm meeting on the streets, to be honest, I'm meeting some apathy, but I'm also meeting some hope and some energy, for people to say, for people to feel like they can get involved. Again, I feel like people have really felt left behind. Right? And I'm not going to tie that to a date that it started, but I do think that people have felt left behind. I think that one of the things we've done as a political class that we've done a bad job of is communicating with people and letting them know what is it that we're trying to do here.
Horrible job of communicating with people.
Yeah.
There's the thing where it's here, right? Because me as working in a barbershop, so it's here a lot about politics from all different walks of life. As be on the street, I in an office thing. People have said this, and this without a shadow of a doubt. People say, look, you elect the D's, it's one thing. You elect the B's, it's the same thing, but it might be saying different. What's the difference between the two parties other than people? What's the difference? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? What we can look forward. People out there actually want something to look forward to, want a government to look forward to. Yeah. If you was a leader, nobody don't want to look back and see you at the back of the park.
Right.
And right now, this government that in power, they're at the back. Nobody don't even look at them no more.
Right. I think that we, like you say, have forgotten what leadership looks like. And I think that we, we have a prime minister who, until about 2 weeks ago, has not been communicating with people.
Quietest prime minister in
Right?
history.
And I also think, I made this point the other day. This is the first time I have seen, and I've worked across the region, this is the first time I've seen a leader of the opposition be so heavily depended on for national leadership. I don't know if you all agree with me or not, but I feel as if there has been a vacuum of leadership, and I feel that Mia has had to fill it. So I think...
I don't know that I've seen that. I feel, from my reading of the situation, I feel as though she has even taken a step back.
How so?
There are a lot of things that I would have expected to hear the opposition more vocal on that I haven't heard.
Like what?
Like what? I can't think
So
of
much
that.
things going on in
So
Barbados.
much-
Okay,
so
so
much-
let me give you an example of
So
what
much
I
going
mean.
on.
Let me give you an example of what I mean. The sewage crisis, right? And sometimes because I am a candidate, I know that you will hear everything I say through that lens. But I'm a Bajan, right? Up until 2 years ago, and I'm still a regular person. So I was actually horrified by the idea that we would be going through something like this, and we would not have a statement. We would not have a prime minister who would hold the country's hand and say, listen, this is how we're going to take you through it, right? And Mia had to be the one to come forward and say, all right, I know y'all thought this situation was under control. It is not. This is the way that I would handle it, right? And she has done that on a number of occasions,
I don't know if that's assuming national leadership. I think that is doing your job as a leader of the opposition.
No, I don't think it's assuming national leadership. That's not what I'm saying, because she can't assume it and she's not so presumptuous to do that. I think what I perceive from people is that they're looking to her. They're expecting her
To respond
To-
on national
But that's
To
the only
respond on
obvious
national
thing
issues.
when you got a prime minister that don't say nothing.
But that's the point. It
To
shouldn't
be
be that
fair,
way.
if you can measure her against Frondel, then
It's not even a race.
I don't know. Maybe y'all could tell me what you think about this, but I figure that's what the opposition is supposed to do.
The opposition is supposed to respond to the statements and policies of the government. But in the absence of statements and policies,
You still got talk. You still got
yeah, you
talk.
still
Well,
talk,
say
but then it
something.
becomes something else. And all I'm saying to you, and this is what I'm perceiving from people, is that when something happens, people are looking to her and saying, well, let's see what she's going to tell us about this.
Okay.
Right? And to me, Farah, you asked about what's the difference. And I really think leadership is one of the big differences. The other big difference, I think, right, is between the Barbados Labour Party and Democratic Labour Party.
I know what the difference is. Trust me. I know what the difference
Right.
is. Is you gotta explain it for the people that out there that can watch it and say, oh, but this is what the difference is. I
Right.
already know.
I think another big difference is getting things done. Right? Now, I don't know how closely y'all been paying attention to some of the less sensational issues. So, for example, when the West Indies women's cricket team, right? The West Indies was supposed to be hosting the Women's World Cup. It was supposed to be in Barbados. And there was no reply to the correspondence about
And
this
they
thing
lost.
happening.
They lost.
And
the,
they lost it,
Yeah.
right?
yes.
So, I mean, just the simple failure to do when you are a government can really cost you, right? So, and what I've seen over the last 10 years is a real failure to act. You can't just not act. That is not an option, right? So for me, what I see as a difference between the two parties is that the Barbados Labour Party is not afraid to do things, to say, well, this is how we are going to implement this thing, and we're going to do it. And again, I don't want this to be a manifesto launch.
It's true.
But
the thing about it is, the thing what you're looking at it now, that's why we so quiet and listen to you, you know what I mean? Because I don't see it as a manifesto. I say that you explaining yourself to
Okay.
the people
As
that you're
long as-
about to represent.
As long as y'all comfortable with
And
that.
the ones that
because-
they want fix in Barbados, in the national stadium, it look it look
Right.
terrible. Like something really gonna happen up
Yeah.
there.
You know, one of the things that if you look at our manifesto, I can speak to it because it's out there. One of the things, and you saw it in the Covenant of Hope as well, that we published a little while ago, is this idea of having a national consciousness, a new national consciousness. You talk about the stadium. I feel as if, and these are not soft issues, these go to the heart of what it is to be a Barbadian and to feel good about being a Barbadian. We need to be able to take pride in the things that we
Is
present to the
Barbadian.
world as
Yeah.
Barbadian.
Yeah.
Right? How you have a national landmarks or places where we host national events that nobody's paying attention to, that just languish. These are things that make people feel good or not good about being Bajan. These are things that make people opt in to the development journey or opt out. Right now, I have a lot of young people in St.Michael, South Central, who are opting out. And that's my job to fix as far as I'm concerned.
There are two things that before the end of this interview, even if that's the only two things I get out that I would like to have answered. I saw some of the promises that were made and they seem really great, but the money ain't gonna come out to the sky for the
Right.
benefit of those who are not aware.
Mm-hmm.
How are we financing all these things? The promises of restoring UE education, of getting this fits, that fits the other. It's a lot of money and we at 4 weeks or less of
Right.
foreign reserves. So how are we doing this?
Okay. Well, I will say this. You will notice from the draft manifesto that we have not yet included, and we will not yet discuss the economic policies. And there's a reason. People keep saying, what is the BLP going to do? And why are we not hearing? But the truth is that the onus is on. Manifestos are launched when an election is called. Why? Because now is the time that you have to make a decision about the government that you think can lead you. Unfortunately, we are in a political system where if you come out too early with your policies, it becomes a distraction. And then everything that the government has to say or do is about detracting from what or causing confusion about what you say. I will say this about our policies. There are a lot of savings to be made from removing corrupt practices, right? That's number one. And that's something that, there's a lot of, economists are polite about it and call it leakage. There's a lot of leakage in government finances right now.
Not right now, before 2008 though.
Well,
To be fair,
I am answering Crystal's question.
the last Auditor General's report before BLP got out of power, there was actually a sentence, and I could almost feel the Auditor General flying on a high, where the Owen Arthur administration was pushing for there to be more investigation into what is going on, having periodic meetings and updates about the status of the Auditor General's report and all that kind of thing. So that was the direction.
So you're saying
But
that
that
before
was under
2008,
Owen Arthur.
before 2008, there was a push to plug some of them leaking holes.
Yes.
Okay.
But we got to remember, a party is as good as its leader. So even if that is what he wanted to have done, I cannot swear to say whether the new leadership is going to push to have that done.
Adrian,
That remains to be seen.
I think we also have to be fair here, right? And as I said to you before we came on air, I do not intend to spend what energy I have trying to go back and say or trying to give the impression that the last BLP administration was perfect. I would not say the last BLP administration was perfect. I don't think any administration is perfect. I do think that when I look at the documents that we publish as a party, promises and performance, that say this is what we promised the people of Barbados and this is how we performed. It is not always an A, It's not always an A+, but the fact of it is the accountability of it. Right? So that we can say we know that we didn't score 100. We scored 85. We scored 87. And I think that's the difference. I think that's the point. The point has to be able to say, well, listen, whatever we are, this is us, right? And you judge us. This administration can't do that. They're not even trying to do that.
Do you think, because there's a lot of work that persons have been doing, myself included, to show that the IMF is not the devil, and hoping that the public would realize that the IMF is not the devil that has been painted. And I fear that the impression that is maintained is that it is the devil, so that the public, when they hear some person say that they can go to the IMF,
right,
they run away from that party.
Yeah, that has always been a political strategy. That has been a political strategy too.
That being said, I'm not saying whether you would or would not, but is it at least a consideration as a cheap source of financing to help plug some of the holes? Even if you have other alternatives, is that one of the alternatives that you're considering?
Nothing is off the table.
Okay.
None of the secrets. Everything
No, but here's what I want to say about your point, Crystal. And it's a good question about, well, where is the money coming from? This administration in 2017, 95% of our revenue came from taxes, highest ever.
I know.
Right? There are more options than taxing people. You would know that there are diminishing returns to taxation.
Correct.
Right? Beyond a certain point, all you're doing is flogging people and not making any more money.
Because Shane Lowe, the president of the Barbados Economic Society, he did a video with us where he showed that whenever the government would raise taxes, obviously the immediate impact, you get enough money.
Right.
And then in about a year or so, drops right back down.
Every single time. A name for something like that had is some sort of taxation name that they had that they show you once taxes pass, I think
once
it's 33%.
You get to this point and
it's
you get
33%. Yeah, once it go past there, it don't make
so
no
the point is that
excuse me, I got an idea. You see all that money that she talked about that these people owe? Everyone can start collecting some of that. That'd be a lot of money that y'all gonna collect.
Right.
You have heard about
I have.
Right.
I've read Crystal's work carefully.
Right. So a lot of that are owed to people because we realize if you owe courts, they just come and pick up the things.
Yeah.
You understand? So these people owing money and ain't paying and still free to operate in Barbados and do as they feel like. And we stand up watching it now. If they owe them, they will come and collect it. So why? They're too big for people to collect back from them?
Yeah, I think definitely we have to rationalize on both sides what is owed to government and what government owes people. Because government owes people too. This last administration owed real people. So we got to be able to reconcile that. But I think the bigger issue for me is that you got to target growth. I tell people all the time, remember growth. You cannot just tax people. I'm sorry. But it is when you have no ideas that all you can think to do is come up with new taxes. The country has to grow, right? There are sectors in which we can grow. You know, there are opportunities in international business, there are opportunities in cultural industries, there are opportunities in renewable energy. We used to be able to say target 2%, 3%, 5% growth.
You know what?
I sorry to jump in.
Go ahead.
I sorry to jump in, right? And it ain't that I defending the government because I think everybody don't know the feelings of the present. Or everybody has a sense of the feelings of the present government.
PPNSRL.
Right? Where's Stampa?
People not supposed to
PPNSRL.
So for me, the discussion is really not about how poorly the DLP is doing. That's a non-issue for me. My concerns are, I guess I could say two concerns. One, what does the next government, whether it's another DLP administration or a BLP or a UPP or UPP. Solutions or whoever, what do they plan to do? And two, how do they plan to change the political culture of Barbados that these kinds of things don't happen again? Because, and that's even the more, that is the more interesting question to me, because we could sit here and say,
but isn't that what we were just discussing? We were just discussing.
So that's why my interjection was so we can go back to that.
Don't use their tactics, some of that can run in the streets and marijuana got to get leaked.
Oh Lord, but he get put out, man. Farrah, you in fear?
Good. I fear. That's the example I'm using.
Yeah.
Don't try to use scare tactics because me as a street person know that never gonna happen.
Right. Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
And we already know, like, you here, like, you talk to certain, as we call them, the chiefs out there. They don't want to be legalized. They don't care about that because they know the minute you legalize weed, somebody can build some big hangers.
Right.
And they can go out the weed growing in these big hangers, and the little small man can always feel the pinch again. So people talk about legalization. I was afraid. I was like, oh yeah, I want to walk and smoke my split. But then I check myself. It don't guarantee that when it legalize that you could be able to do that still. You know what I mean? I rather go with it like, yo, let me walk by the little ounce and blow a little O and thing. It's still legal, but yo, that's how it is. It just gotta come up with something. People want that so bad, and that's not the main thing that I think that can help Barbados legalizing marijuana. What you think can help Barbados is if you could fix these rules, except when the Queen and she people come down here, that is one. Fixing all that pop up, so
All
force.
right, let's talk about that.
Wait, because that, Barbados got 1 foot to stand up on and named tourism. And he would not sorry eating it out. And that right there is a whole bunch of what not saying thing. Because they have friends that come here, because being that he got my Facebook and stuff. I remember my Canadian friend just coming here. The first thing she asked me was like, yo, what's wrong with the South Coast? I'm like, what? She's like, you didn't realize that they got a lot of sewage up there? Like, oh, that. Like, oh, we're a customer that ain't going to be until somebody come along with the idea and think and use the money and get it fixed. Because up there floating and they were in, I think it was in the newspaper, they said that the problem was fixed. And right after that, somebody tell me, no, it ain't. They still got to do what they're floating about. So, and then they got washed down and all that.
So the issue with that, the issue that Marsha brought up about that is that this is not a problem that started with the DLP. But what we can't blame the DLP for is the lack of communication and the lack of giving Barbadians a sense of security that we are on the job. And we are.
It goes
beyond that. It goes beyond that because I keep hearing this rhetoric about how it wasn't built by the DLP. That's not the issue. The issue is maintenance, and that's why you talk about failure to act. Right? You cannot just sit down and warm a bench in Parliament and think that is the extent of your job. You have to maintain. Look around. The reason that things are falling apart is that they're not being maintained, right? So the point is that the sewage plant had to be maintained. The reason that everything went to shit is because it was
it's a management issue.
It's a management issue. So it's not just a communication issue. It is that we had there was a report that was published from Patricia Innes over 2 years ago to say if something is not done now, this thing is going to blow up, and nothing was done.
So that's like, Adrian, I give you a brand new house, and
it wasn't a brand new house.
But let me say, you a brand new.
It wasn't a brand new house.
I give you a house, period, and you decide you ain't gonna check for termites, you ain't doing the treatments, you ain't painting the walls when they start to chip and all that kind of thing, and then you want to blame the person who give you the house.
But like I said, right? Like I said, the failings of the present government are well.
Yeah, but Adrian, I mean, let's be fair though. We cannot have this conversation without making reference to them. So it seems
but them is who running the government.
that you want us to go around that without
but
having
we still need to address.
We got Marsha here now.
Correct.
We can get Marsha here again.
DLP will go speak to what DLP did or did not do.
Right.
We know God talk about what DLP did or did not do and how we can make sure it don't happen.
That's
again.
what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because also if we can talk about the sewage problem, remember the one I think that's in Fontebelle. There's 19 capacitors. Out of them 19, 17 failed. They wait till they get the 17, then they realize it was a problem. So at 5 in the bonus say, ooh, this could be a problem. 10, 15.
Again.
But on the sewage issue, you don't have to wait until we come to government to know that. Because Mia gave a press conference outlining in detail exactly what our administration will do as, if we were to be chosen by people to lead the country. So you don't have to guess about that. So
in other words, me I want me going on there and diving off and saying, the water safe to swimming.
Exactly. But Adrian, I think
that man has low hanging fruit.
No, but
That's
in the interest of balance, this and this is something that we have to address too, right? Because I think that we have now set our expectations so low that we know at the point where we gain the government a blight. We say, well, we done know that they failed, so left them now. Could there? No.
That's what you hear me saying?
Yeah.
I know for
You
sure
hear me
you're
saying let them
no,
condemn? Hold on. We gonna invite the DLP in here too.
Yeah.
We gonna invite the DLP in here too.
But my responses have to have context, and this is and this they are now the government. So I cannot respond without making reference to what is happening now and why. You asking me about what will be our responses to X and Y, right? I can't respond without making reference to what's happening now.
You can make a reference, but making a reference.
And that's what I'm doing.
Right.
Farah is the
I know,
one
Farah. In all fairness, it is not you. I interrupted Farah. I tell him Farah, we don't know put running in the streets.
Yeah.
Let me hear from the prospective candidate going forward now. Not only about put in the streets, but like I said, this government was allowed to do this by the people of Barbados.
Right.
The people of Barbados, with their apathy, with their lack of involvement in politics, with their hands-off approach to politicians, allowed this. Don't forget to win a second term in office, you know.
It's true.
Don't forget to win a second term in office. So I'm saying,
so give him a chance.
My concern, the question for me is how will the next government of Barbados empower the people of Barbados and change the political culture of Barbados?
Right.
That this cannot happen again.
Okay. I think that the next government of Barbados can provide the opportunity, can provide the environment to change the political culture, but I think it's up to all of us to change it. A couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting where we introduced the idea of local governance, right? Where we have in every constituency people's assemblies that are elected by people of the constituency, elected, not appointed. And where a part of their work, which I am excited about, is keeping government accountable, so keeping the MP and the government accountable for things like services in the community. So things like how the hospital is running, things like how the polyclinics are running, what's going on in schools, so that, you know, there's a system for saying to the MP or to politicians, this is not good enough, and there's a way to do it.
And who's going to establish those systems?
No, a Barbados Labour Party government would do it. But what I'm saying is, that's why I said we provide the framework, but it's still up to people to get involved.
Because here's my concern. I've had a couple, let me give some examples. The last show that I did with David Commission, Kristen Turton of the Bar Association, and Verla DePisa, we talked about the Police Act. We went around a whole rigmarole about how dangerous it is, the potential impact, everything else, the fact that you ain't had no input from nobody, it just get passed, and this is something that we would like to be able to have a say on because of the significant impact it will have on us as citizens. And at the end of all of that talk that we put down, we hear it don't make a difference because it done gone through anyhow, and there's nothing we could do at this point to change it. And this is what I mean by my fear. How do we make sure that never happens again? And if it does happen again, what recourse I got as a Bajan? Because I might not be able to depend on the 285,000 Bajans to get up and say anything because they don't feel as though it ain't gonna make a difference. So me and the other few persons in Barbados who are pushing for accountability, what we supposed to do when we see these things happening? We can't engage Bajans anymore because the fed and the feel as though talking ain't gonna make a difference, pushing ain't gonna make a difference, and it's just these few bodies pushing for these things not to happen.
I want to see a government that say, boy, I wish more Bajans was like David Commission.
Yeah.
I want to see a government that enjoys that challenge and appreciates that challenge.
Let me say this. I really feel that the people of Barbados are going to have to see inclusive governance in action before they believe that it can happen.
I agree.
Right? So we've talked about things like referenda and people's initiatives. People's initiatives means that you want something to happen. If there are 5,000 more or 20,000 more or some representative sample of people and you could get those signatures to bring something to Parliament, that is a people's initiative. So it is something that clearly has enough talk out there, clearly has enough support that Parliament should consider it, right? That's one. The idea of having consultation on policy, and that's why I get afraid, because I feel as if Bajans forget that there are things that used to work. We used to have a town hall meeting system, right? Lots of countries all over the world have it, where you bring draft legislation to people, and that's why the people's assemblies are perfect for that. You bring draft legislation, just like how we bring the draft integrity bill, and say, this is what we have, what do you think about that? And give people an opportunity. This is something that used to happen in Barbados before.
It's happened within the last 10 years. So, well, at least with the cultural industries bill, there were consultations about that.
Exactly. So I mean, it is possible to have a consultative process, and to make people feel things like referenda. That if something is important enough, that is not up to the 30 of us, that y'all go,
But
binding
what
or
happens
non-binding,
in
y'all
cases
go.
like this one where, as far as I'm aware, they didn't have a town hall, they had a consultation, they had nothing.
But Crystal, that would not happen. And I mean, it's one thing for me to tell you so, but I would like it to be the will of the people.
I know you got the faith that it will not happen.
Yeah, but
I
we
am
gotta
here
put it in
talking about
place.
what's going to happen when you all get your 5 years, if y'all get your 5 years, and we don't see it happen, what recourse is there for us? Because right now, I feel as though we're being held to ransom by the fact that there is nothing legally that we can do when these things happen. Nothing.
These are things that need to be looked at.
So if I am going off of the fact that of your faith and it don't work out, I'm praying it work out.
It's not faith though, it's policy. It's policy. That's why I
that
said.
may or may not get put in place. It may or may
But
not.
Crystal, the truth is that I can sit here and talk to the cows come home. I could write manifesto to the cows come home. It's not about hope. It is that it is demonstrate. Because when I sit here from outside government and tell you, yes, we're going to do this. Okay, great. But we have to demonstrate.
Right?
And
you know what they say.
It's a tough position.
I promise it's a comfort
to show and to prove.
Yeah, show and
really
tell.
Ain't nothing else more that you could do other than tell people this.
So it's really a tough position that you're in.
But
you work
but
with people that have lost faith.
But I know that, I feel that Bajans at this point are going to be receptive to positive movement. I do. I think that once we are able to prove, and it's not going to take us 5 years to do it, I think that once we're able to prove within the first 6 months that we are doing things different, that people are going to start to say, okay, we can pay attention again. But we can only do it. We can only do it. I think that what we've laid out so far, I am satisfied. And I think that a lot of what we are proposing is actually new and interesting, right? I hope it's new and interesting because we all, myself included, had a hand in it, and that's why I am excited about the way this process has been consultative. I don't know if you know anything about how manifestos used to be done. I don't think I get trouble for saying this. But they were not the most consultative things. They were not. And what has been encouraging to me is that I sat with 29 other people and other people, I mean experts across fields in Barbados, that we went to and said, listen, if you could do anything with education, if you could do anything with cultural industry, if you could do anything with transport, what would you do? And we listened, right? So, and we got some really exciting conversation and ideas. Listen, Barbados is not short on ideas, Barbados is short on the leadership and the implementation. We have some really engaged and smart people, including on blocks. A lot of great ideas come from fellas just like me and saying, if I had this to do it, this way I would do. But first you gotta listen. Well, first you gotta go. And then you gotta listen. You understand? And I feel excited that we've been able to do that. And Adrian, not to tell her our business, but you know me. And you know that if this was business as usual, I would not be here. Because I'm not about business as usual.
I ain't gonna lie. I respect you, Marsha. I really do. I ain't gonna lie. Maybe my cynicism, I don't know which is greater, my respect for you or my cynicism for politics, but I do respect you.
Yeah, it's got that conflict too.
Before we go, now that I have two economists here, this is something that I am concerned about. And that is the discussion about the state of Barbados is heavily dominated by economists and economic discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me, as a non-economist, that all of the economists are calling from the same playbook. And it is a certain brand of economics.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not seem to adequately consider the human factor in society a lot of the times.
Right.
This is my impression. Mm-hmm. And you heard talk about the IMF. Now, I heard Don Marshall on the radio a few weeks back talking about other options and other strategies and other ways of viewing the situation that are not even on the table. Mm-hmm. I am concerned that our economists may be a little narrow-minded, or they're economically blinkered, and not sufficiently considering the human factor in the economy.
Right. Well, I'm a development economist, right? And the point of development economics is exactly what you say, to make sure that we don't get too caught up in numbers and equations, and we understand that the business of economics is about provisioning to people, right? I believe, and I've made this point, including to my colleagues, that we can't, I've seen this in a lot of adjustment programs, we can't do the damage and then look to mitigate the damage to people, right? And I believe that any adjustment that we do, we have said as a party that you cannot have labor, for example, ordinary working class people on the front line of the adjustment. We've said that, right? So in whatever economic adjustment has to be done, all of the sectors have to share the burden. That's not something that you usually see, to be honest, because one of the first things that you hear when an adjustment has to be made is that you have to cut public sector jobs, right? Now, we know that in Barbados has a public sector that's a large employer of people, so obviously that's going to put people in trouble. I think that we, in looking at the fact that we know hard decisions have to be made, and we know that there's going to be some discomfort. I think that we have to make sure that there's no one group of people that feel that discomfort more than the others. We've traditionally, across the region, we've always protected certain sectors. But we've said that, all of us are going to have to share this burden. So I feel confident that this is not, what we have to do when we come to government is not something that is going to further oppress working class people. I feel confident about that. We all are going to have to, are going to have to see a bit of discomfort. I don't think it is. I think it will be less discomfort than we have seen in the last 10 years, to be honest. Because the truth is that if you have to change policy in order to make an economic recovery happen, it has to be quick. You have to do it sufficiently broadly and with enough depth that it will be quick. And that's what has not happened in this administration, because we've just gone from recovery plan to recovery plan to recovery plan, hoping and praying that it works, and it hasn't worked, and we've had essentially 10 years of adjustment with people just being worse off. I think that our plan for adjustment is across groups of people, so it's not being burdened. We're not looking to burden labor and burden the working class with it. And it is also we're also looking to make it quick enough that we can start to be on an upward path again. I agree with you. But I also think that the real heavy lifting of getting Barbados on the path of transformation is not so much the economy. I know that this economy will recover. Right? I'm not saying that I could do it single-handedly, but I know.
That's a different tune and everybody's singing, though, you know?
Yeah. No.
That's it. I mean, everybody's saying the economy is the issue, boy.
No,
That's the nothing we could do.
No. In fact, I know the economy will recover. I know that we have come up with a set of solutions that are going to mean the economy is going to recover. Because the truth is, and that is what I keep saying, Bajans have been sold the notion that this had to happen, that we could have done better. But we could have done better. We could have managed this crisis a lot better. The crisis was over years ago, right? So I'm not so much worried about the economy as I am about the extent to which we'll be able to make people be the center of the recovery. People have to drive the recovery, you know, and people have to benefit from it. And we have to make sure that that happens. And that means that we're not just looking at the economy, we're looking at education. A lot of the heavy lifting that we have to do is in the education sector. That is the
real thing.
That's the real thing.
Real thing.
I quite hear a lot of people saying that that the education system want revamping because it's the same thing that my grandmother learned in school. The same thing that now my children come now and learn in school. Like, what? But I don't make the same.
Here is where I would jump into the present administration because I believe that the Minister of Education has been allowed to slip under the radar, even though he didn't want to slip under the radar. But his ministry has been allowed to just course because the conversation has been all about the economy.
Yeah, it's true.
And a lot of other things failing.
Mm-hmm. You saw, I think it's Finland, that they're phasing out teaching subjects altogether.
Really?
I think it's by 2020 that they'll be done with that altogether and you will be learning about different subject matters. So if you want to be a barista and there's economics involved with that, customer skills, all that kind of thing, that is how they're focusing their education system. So when you go into a job, you will know that these are the skills you need to be able to accomplish this job.
These are people not afraid to create for themselves.
Right, but you know, I listen, I cannot wait. I'm excited about discussing all of our policies, but I cannot wait until we get to the conversation about our policies on education.
Mm-hmm. Me neither.
I cannot wait. I mean, I hope you'll have us back to talk about them, but I'm excited. I'm excited about them because, you know, and I said when I gave the Grantley Adams lecture, the same one Crystal mentioned, and you know, I talked about a new development model, and a lot of that was grounded in education and culture.
That's how we can turn around.
That's
how we can turn around. When we have persons who start to think differently and think ahead, it is so difficult to think in a mold which was developed for persons to be good workers, good industry workers, where you have to do this, and this to produce this. And now we want them to think creatively. And you're being punished if you make a mistake.
You feel as though people understand that? The people that you move, the circles that you move in, Crystal, people understand this? You catch that look? You catch that look when you feel I don't feel so neither.
People
Marsha,
like to talk about it.
Yeah.
In theory, they like to talk about it, but they don't like to do it because they get scared. They get scared of this creative thinking that you can't control and you can't measure. So what happens? How do you know if the person failed or not? And what do you do if the person fails? How do you measure if you ask some person to, and they give you an answer that's not in the textbook? Because there are times where you've seen jokes going around where a student would have given an answer that's not in the textbook, but you look at the answer and it's so creative, and they get an X. So what is that saying about you wanting to encourage creative thinking, but when it happens, you give it a score of 0. Yeah. And then they grow up into an adult that is trained to only regurgitate the answer that was in the textbook. And they can't give creative solutions to new and difficult problems.
Bring me back to talk about education, not politics, just me.
Education.
Just education.
We can work on that.
Farah, you got anything to tell me? Wait.
I listening and I learning. Me, I ain't gonna pick on the body yet because the thing about it is I learned this a long time ago with doing blogging. If you jump in too fast and you say the wrong things, they might come back to hurt you. So what you do is You listen, you learn. And then you revive them things when the things don't come to pass. And you say, look, hey, I remember you say this. And I remember you say that. But you didn't do this. No, you didn't do that. Why? All I want to know is, them is the things I want me. I don't want to be asking you, Miss Caddle. I don't want to be asking you, why? You say this, you say that. Why it happened? Because I just look at it like this. Every day, when we done do the show and all that, I just got to be still out there around the poor people that vote for politicians. And it's about time that politicians realize that them is more than a vote.
Of course.
They're way more than a vote. Promises is comforts the fool. There's pimplers in bed. They can't sleep good. You understand? And people got to realize that. With that being said,
Out.
and
Bad.
done talk. Thanks, Miss Caddle, for coming through and making this a great show. See, it was easy, right?
It wasn't easy, but it was fun.
Oh, good. See, I tell you, it was the boiler room.
But if this is what we do to the candidates we like.
Oh, God, no. Don't. Oh, edit out down here.
No, man, I think this was a fair
It was
Yeah,
fair.
fair.
You have to
Cordial
ask the hard
conversation,
questions.
you know what I mean?
Have to.
And thanks to co-host,
Yeah, man.
Crystal, for coming through again. People, we can see you in the next week. Out and bad, done talk.